Hello everybody, welcome to the webinar Production Line Improvement with OAE, presented by you by ProChamp, FullFact and ECPA. We are very excited that so many people are joining this event. We have a mix of ECPA members, FullFact customers and relations from all over the world. Therefore, this webinar will be in English. My name is John Tubbing, and together with my dear colleague Roos Helweg, I will be hosting this webinar. But the real VIP today is Ton Kleberg, currently plant manager within ProChamp, who will tell you everything you always have wanted to know about handling mushrooms. To be more precise, how OAE is helping him and his team with this daily operation. Next slide, please. Please be aware that this webinar is being recorded, so stay muted and be careful not to activate your camera and possibly become a YouTube star. No, don't worry, it's not possible from your side. Next slide, please. As mentioned, this session is presented to you also by the ECPA. And ECPA stands for European Co-Packers Organization, from which FullFact is an associate member. And the ECPA and its member co-packers represent the professional contract packing industry in Europe, providing a valued resource for brand owners, manufacturers and retailers who are looking to outsource services like co-packing, co-manufacturing, filling, fulfillment and logistics. So if you are looking for a co-packer company, please just Google ECPA with a C or directly visit their website www.ecpacopacking.com. Before I go into site like a Telcel television channel, let's get started. Ton will share his experiences from this year, which has been, of course, for everybody a very interesting but rough year. And after his presentation, there's room for Q&A. Please enter your questions in English via the chat function, and Ton or myself will answer them if we can. And again, this webinar is recorded and the link will be sent to you afterwards. Ton, can I please invite you to take over the stage, introduce yourself and give an introduction of ProChamp. We're very much looking forward to the presentation. Of course. So please take it away.
Yeah, thank you, John. Good morning, everybody. As John told you, my name is Ton Kleberg. I'm happy to be here in this webinar. The last year I was plant manager for ProChamp, and ProChamp, I will tell you a little bit about ProChamp, what ProChamp is. I'm an interim manager, and my work, just a little bit about myself, I go to companies that are most of the time struggling with performance, efficiency, number of people, procedures, communication, things like that. So overall, a performance that stays behind. And I go to the several production companies to take care of that and improve that efficiency and lower the cost, also look at purchasing, etc., etc. Most of the time I do that for food companies for the last 30 years. A year ago I went to ProChamp, and ProChamp is one of the leading manufacturers of canned mushrooms. The strength of ProChamp is that they cover the entire chain. So that means composing what we call the compost, then actually producing of the mushrooms, and then after that the processing and canning of the mushrooms. So this morning we are focusing at a company called ProChamp, because at ReChamp they really combine and compile the compost. At the Peffer Group, the production of the mushrooms, but here at ProChamp we receive the mushrooms, and after that we process the mushrooms and can the mushrooms. So we are talking this morning about the efficiency improvement of ProChamp. We go to the first slide. It's more or less an agenda for this morning. I go to the topics roughly and tell you a little bit more about it. The OEE toolkit implementation started with the first steps, of course. We're going to explain to you what is the first step, second step of such a project. Then we go to the choice we had to make, what machinery, what lines we are going to implement the OEE toolkit first and why. After that, we talk a little bit about changeovers and run length, what we call short stops. I will come to that later, but a short stop is a stop of maybe 10, 20, 30 or 60 seconds. So not a stop of 5 or 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So actually a short stop. You are not able to identify the reason of that short stop, but just see the stop. Machine downtime, well, we all know that. We come to that later. An OEE improvement. I assume that everybody knows what OEE is, but for the people who don't know what OEE is, OEE stands for Overall Equipment Efficiency. Looking at the available time, the availability of your machines during a shift or 2 shifts or 3 shifts. What time are you actually producing of the available time you have in the production? So that's OEE. It's a multiplier of 3 factors, but we will come to that later in a graphic. Also, of course, focus on the people and the role of the operator. When you implement a package like OEE toolkit, you need your colleagues, you need the people on the floor, you need the commitment and the enthusiasm of the people. Otherwise, you are standing alone and the implementation will not be a success. And then the last sheets, the overall findings and conclusions. So these are more or less the topics of the next 30 minutes. The first steps to start the improvement project. We call it an improvement project because when, and we will show you that later, we actually were able to improve the efficiency significantly with the help of the OEE toolkit package. In the beginning, we set the goals for improvement. We will show you later that the efficiency, the moment we started to actually measure the efficiency, it was very, very, very low. For you who know the figures of the OEE, world-class manufacturing is 85%, but then you have to do everything has to be in order. The moment we started measuring the OEE with the package, we looked at percentages around 20%, so that's very low. So the first goals we set, well, if we can double it or maybe in a year come close to the 60%, that would be great. It's still far from 85, but 60% is triple the efficiency we started with. So these were the goals for the improvement. Observe the production floor. We of course started before we actually implemented the OEE toolkit package. We looked at the performance, the output of the several lines, and we just old-fashioned took a pen and a notebook and looked at how many trays are passing on the roller conveyor. And if you look at that and you time that, I've done that myself, and based on the timing of following that trace, I saw that the planning was, for instance, 5 hours to do 1 run, and actually if the OEE would be 100%, you could have done it in 2.5 hours. So there was an enormous loss of time. We found out during the observation with pen and notebook. So that was the reason we said we need to know where we spoil so much time, so we need a package. After that, we discussed the findings with the team leaders, operators, and the planning. I just discussed the planning. It was double the time you actually need to do a certain run. The team leaders explained what they did during and what their findings were during production, and also the operators. After those 3 items, it was very clear for us that we needed a tool to do the actual measurement, because standing there with a pen and a note block is not workable. So we needed a tool, and we started a market investigation. What tools are available in the market in terms of OEE measurement? And quite fast, within, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks, we found in the market the OEE toolkit package. Was recommended by actually 2 people out of my own network. So we invited the people from OEE from FullFact, and they explained what the OEE toolkit package was capable of. And yeah, we immediately went over to the purchase of that package. We started with 1 year. We recently extended that for another 2 years. So we are very happy with it, but we come to that later. Here you see a photo on the production floor of both the SME, what we call SMI1, is a tray packer, and also Prosmatic. On the left side and on the right side are 2 tray packers. What does it mean? The actually canned mushrooms, including a label, are transported on the conveyors to this machine. And this machine, when that machine is running, that is that represents the actually running of the line. You need 1 machine to measure all the individual components that pass that line, and we chose 2 machines for that. One is the tray packer SMI1. SMI is the name of a brand, an Italian brand of a tray packer, and Prosmatic, you see that on the right side, is also Italian, by the way, a tray packer. So the cans go in, and what these machines do, you can put trays underneath the cans. You can put a film around the cans. You can make groups of 3 or 5 or 6 cans with a film. So a very versatile machine, and we did the measurements of running and numbers, etc. on these 2 machines. And the reason why we chose those 2 machines is when I came in a year ago, especially the packaging was a huge trouble in terms of efficiency, in terms of yield. We start with the processing here. We have processing and packaging. The processing a year ago was okay. Not too many difficulties, but all the difficulties we found in the packaging. That's the reason we started with trying to improve that efficiency with the help of an OEE package. And that was, we have 3 packaging lines, and we started with 2 of those 3 as a pilot. So here you see a graph. I will show you more graphs, but after installation of the OEE toolkit, we could measure many things. One of the items you see, if you have a downtime, the reason of that downtime, you can identify, and it appeared that we faced many changeover. So if you go from one SKU to another SKU, you have a changeover, maybe another label, another format of a can. We have different cans from a small size to a big size. And if you have a changeover, the machine is not running. And many changeovers cause an enormous downtime. You see on the left side in minutes is in week 4, approximately the timing when we started with the implementation of the OEE toolkit, around 300 minutes per week in changeover time. And in week 23 was 150 minutes, so half. And we saw, thanks to the package, that the number of changeovers was too high. So what we did is talk to both the planning department and also the sales department. Is it not possible to combine orders to enlarge the run length? So the number of changeover goes to 50%. That's only possible. We also went to the sales department, because the planning department, the horizon of the planning department, if that's too short, you cannot combine orders. So you need a forecast from the sales department of at least 13 weeks. So we went to both the planning department and also the sales department to do a smarter production planning with a larger horizon to be able to combine orders and increase the run length and reduce the number of changeovers, so less downtime. So that's one of the findings from the package, where we were able to do something about that and actually increase the run length. That helped enormously. Another thing you see here, the short stops of, we call it the PRASM, is the prosmetic, short for prosmetic. It's one of the lines, is just an example. In week 4, you saw the number of short stops was in minutes, 170 minutes of short stops. And we defined a short stop as a stop less than 1 minute. We started with 30 seconds, but then we had, I believe, 300 short stops in one shift, so we increased that to 1 minute. But you see that we had many short stops, and a short stop means that it's not necessary and also not possible for the operator to identify, and that's possible on the OEE toolkit program. When you have a stop, the line is not running, and the operator must choose one of the machines with a touchscreen, the reason why the stop is caused. So he will press on a machine, that machine caused the stop right now. But if you have a short stop, it's not possible. But we identified what is the reason of the short stops, and we found 4, 5, 6 reasons of the short stops, and started to solve those problems. And you see that we went down from 160 minutes or 170 minutes in week 4 to 60 minutes in week 23. So it was also enormous decrease of short stops, so more running time. Here you see that's one of the outputs of the package OEE toolkit, the Pareto of the downtime of what we call SMI1. On the left you see production in green, and there was a certain percentage of downtime. The blue one, that's the big one, is 23.3% was caused. It is in Dutch, sorry for that. For the people who do not understand Dutch, I will translate it. It says a downtime because of the the processing. It's not the production, is the processing. Processing is from receiving the mushrooms. You blanch it, you cool it, you cut it, and then you put all the mushrooms in a can. You do a preservative. You add then the lid on the can, so the can is finished. So that's in processing. And because of the combination, well, not the combination, but the processing and the packaging are most of the time in line. That means that the cans that are produced in processing go directly to the packaging. But if there is a difficulty in the processing, you have a downtime in packaging. And that happened more and more and more. So we identified here, thanks to the package, that we have to do something about it. And as we speak, we are working on analysis to separate the processing and packaging. That means that everything that is processed, all the cans, go to our own warehouse on the site, and separately from the warehouse to the packaging. So there will be no downtime at all in the packaging due to a failure in the processing. Well, the other downtimes are caused by individual machines, and you see the Hoofd, that's a label machine that puts a label on the can. Ombouw is changeover and short stops, etc., etc. But you can see here the identification of all the individual breakdowns, and if there is an excess in percentage, then we discuss that and see what the reason is and try to do something about it. Here another sheet in terms of downtime due to failure. There's one explanation there. It says the total downtime of the Prosmetic was shocking, and it was really shocking in the beginning. Week 4, you see 1.07. It is 1 day, 7 hours, 15 minutes, and 11 seconds. So in 1 week, 31 hours of downtime. That is extremely, it's really extreme. So in week 23, we identified the difficulties at the Prosmetic tray packer. In week 23, we were reduced to 7 hours. 7 hours is still a lot. At the moment, because we had a stop in week, in the end of October, and all the what we call the snagging list, all the rest items of the Prosmetic were covered. So at the moment, it's even much lower, around 1 hour in the week. So we went from 31 hours to actually, at the moment, week 47, I believe, it's approximately 1 hour. But here in week 23, 7 hours. So that's one of the advantages of really identifying where the problems are. Here you see another graph, and with the next 4 sheets, I'd like to show you the difference in OEE. So again, overall equipment efficiency of the SMI1 line in January. It is from the 27th of January to the 2nd of February. So it's 1 week combined. You see on the left availability, performance and quality. Those 3 together, if you multiply them, you end up with an OEE of 24.3%. Availability means that the rest of the time is downtime, failure, waiting, idle time, etc. Performance means that a machine that can run, let's say, 60 trays per minute was set up at maybe 50. So we also identified that and said, well, we can speed up that machine to really 60 trays per minute. The quality in this, in our packaging, for the moment, we set the quality just on 1. Quality means is an indication of the percentage of the finished product what is approved. So on the pallet, after the palletizer, you measure what percentage of the actually produced cans are, from a quality point of view, okay. Well, we set at this moment on 1 because it's difficult to momentarily identify if the quality is 100%, because most of the time the cans go for a couple of days into what we call quarantaine. It's a COVID word at the moment, a quarantaine, to see that, to measure if the cans are really closed at the moment. So, but that's a technical issue. So for the moment, the most important focus was on availability. Quality most of the time is okay. But you see 24.3% very low. An example of a week later is 27.9. On the right side, you can see an identification of that. The split up of the 27.9% is still very low. In comparison to July, we make a move to July, the 13th of July till the 19th of July, we moved up, and again, it's just an example of 1 line in 1 week. Of course, we have many data, but just to give you an indication, 56.1%, and a week later, even 61.9%, and that's the OEE over a whole week. So that's not very bad. So that gives an indication of the move we made, the improvement we made between January, February, and July this year. In another graph, you can see the evolution. I indicated when we started at the beginning of this year, it was around 20%. It says here on the low side of the sheet, 22%. 8 months later, we look at roughly 60%. It's even so that from time to time we were even forced to celebrate a huge OEE. So from time to time we even reached the 78 and even 83%. So a number of people are very, very, very proud here. And what also is interesting to mention is that you see at the moment even a difference in the 2 shifts. We run in 2 shifts, in total 17 hours per day. And there is a difference in OEE between the first shift, so let's say shift A and shift B. So there is a certain competition also has started, and that's a good thing. So yeah, we are very proud, and we are not there. You see 60% in July. It's not the fact that we reach every day 80%, of course, but what I indicated, if we are so far now that if the process part is actually producing the cans on time, that the packaging department really is able to reach the 75% at the moment. So that again is the reason we are doing analysis, and at 99% sure that we are going to do that, separate processing from packaging. So the people and the role of the operator, of course, if you have a software package and you install a network and you install a PC with the software of OEE Toolkit, you are not there. You need the people, you need the commitment. We formed what we call SGA teams, small group activity teams, to, for instance, focus on what we call SMED, single minute exchange of die. If you have a downtime, and I always give the example of a pit stop of Max Verstappen, the pit stop needs to be as short as possible. So investigate when you have a stop, a downtime due to a changeover. Have a look at minimizing the time for that changeover at the most. So we formed SGA teams together with production and also technique to see what we could do offline, what we can do simultaneously, if we need tools. So that helped enormously. We also made one person responsible per shift per line for handling the OE toolkit. Also make sure that the logbook is used, and also train new people. So you have to make somebody responsible for that, and that worked pretty good. And what I said, logbook, it is possible in the OE toolkit. If something happens, something special happens, that you type in 1 or 2 lines to explain what caused a failure, for instance. You will find that in the logbook. In the sheets, the former sheets, you can find underneath the word logbook. It's also very handy. So when I look at the overall findings and conclusions, the reasons for using the OE toolkit, well, we have chosen for the OE toolkit, but the reasons to measure really the OEE is to actually know how you are doing. What is the efficiency? What is the performance? Can we improve that? And therefore you have to measure. If you do not measure, you don't know. So that was the reason we started implementing an OEE package. Well, the challenges to overcome, it is important to work together with operators, team leaders, also involve the technical people. In the beginning with the implementation, we had to combine several suppliers. It was Full Fact who delivered something. We had a separate supplier for the PC. We had another supplier for the network. We had another supplier for the server. So there was 4 different suppliers involved, and in the beginning, the first 2 weeks, that caused some friction. So you have to look at that during the implementation. Well, the internal expectations, especially at a small group that was involved, yeah, they had high expectations because the downtime was so enormously, so the expectations were very high, and I must say are fulfilled at the moment. That answers the next thing, the situation before and after working. I showed you that. Most important concrete improvement so far is the insight. What is the reason of the downtime? Are you waiting for cans from the processing? Is there a difficulty with the labeling machine or the other individual machines? Is it maybe the operator? The number of changeovers, the duration of the changeover. You can identify all reasons of a downtime, and that helps enormously. So that's, yeah, I think the most important concrete improvement, because if you identify all those individual reasons of the downtime and you are focusing on solving those causes, then you make enormous improvements. Cost savings, we can talk about both cost savings and also convince the board here to do several investments to actually improve the efficiency. There was just one example. We had a robot, and that robot puts on a layer of cans on the belt, but that robot was working too slow. Every time we run with that robot instead of a standard pelletizer, you could see that the downtime was enormously. So it just couldn't catch up with the rest of the capacity of the line. So we made a capex to improve a number of items in and around that robot, and that cost maybe 10,000–15,000 euro. But now we are able, with working with that robot, to actually cope with the rest of the capacity of the line. So the goals versus outcome, I could say right now that due to the insight and actually the enormous improvement of the OEE, the goals are, the outcome really exceeded the goals from the beginning. We are very pleased and very surprised though that we could come so far in just 6–7 months. And again, what I already mentioned, a clear insight of the performance, but I already mentioned that. I think, that's about everything I have to explain about working with the OEE Toolkit package. Very satisfied. So we are pleased, and we are sure that next year we continue with extending the number of packages in the entire production facility, and go have a look at the process side as well, instead of only the packaging. Okay, John?
Great, thank you, Tom. It's clear and hopefully pragmatic enough for everybody listening to your story. It's amazing what you have done in such a short time. We sometimes within FullFact we say, well, you can follow the 24–24–24 rule, implement it in 24 hours, get the first results all in 24 days. You can see things, and within 24 weeks you are able to make decisions and hopefully get some back from your investment. And you show that in quite a short time, and it is a very, very challenging year, 2020, for everybody. That you have done that very well, I can say, and hopefully that message came across. During your presentation, I received some questions which I was able to answer already, hopefully to the satisfaction. Are there people also now who have questions for us? There's time for us now to answer them, so please use the chat functionality and let us know.
What I can say in the meantime is that at the moment I showed you a 60% OEE. At the moment we are looking even at higher overall equipment efficiencies, OEEs. Well, unfortunately, what I indicated, by the end of this year, the end of December, I will leave the company. I'm an interim manager, and a permanent role will be there for my successor by the 1st of January. But I'm convinced that if we continue working with this package, that and if the split of processing and packaging is implemented, that we should be able to reach the 70% OEE mid next year easily. So that would be great if you see where we come from.
Yeah. Is it also a challenge for you to get the fluctuations under control? You have shown us that sometimes it's let's say 40, and sometimes it's almost 80%. Do you see reasons for that already, or is that too soon to answer?
You must imagine when I came in, most of the difficulties we found in the packaging. So we focused on, with the help of the OEE Toolkit program, we focused enormously on increasing the efficiency in the packaging. In the same time, the processing and this processing is split in a new building and an old building, but especially in the old building, which is more than 20 years old with old equipment, the focus was not there the last 6 months. That's one. And number two, due to the Corona crisis, we were forced to produce in that old factory processing constantly, because there we produce small cans for the retail. In the new building, we produce big cans for the food service. And food service restaurants was almost zero, but the retail was went to the roof. So we had to produce every day, 17 hours a day in what we call east. We have east and west, so in the old factory.
Yeah.
And due to the less of focus and constantly producing, we see the last 2 months, 3 months, more breakdowns in that processing area, and that has an impact on the packaging. And therefore you see the volatility in efficiency in the packaging. That's the main reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. Okay. Okay. I'm not getting any questions now from via the chat, so well, conclude that your story is very clear, Ton. Thank you very much. Of course, if there are people who are don't want to share their questions via this feature, you can always send Ton or myself an email with any questions you might have. And should you be interested in the Black Friday offerings Ton has to offer with ProChamp, then that's also available. I hear there are questions still. Okay, I'm sorry. There is another part of the system I didn't see yet. Let me go through the questions, Ton. Which common improvement methods you used to get the improvement? You talked about SMET and small group activity. Are those the methods, or did you do Kaizen, Monozukuri, or whatever kind of?
No, we. If you look at the umbrella TPM, we used the SMET. And we used the SGA groups, and more or less within those two techniques, that was it to improve the. Most of the time is what was pretty basic. Another thing was the what I actually mentioned is involve other departments outside the operations department. So the planning department and also the sales department were involved. So it was company-wide. Besides the individual techniques like Kaizen, it was company-wide to improve that efficiency. Yeah.
Okay, good. Another question, is the plant maintenance included in the availability? Do you have plant maintenance, or was that something?
Yeah, we have plant maintenance. Of course, we also changed. Yeah, there were a lot of changes. If you look at the maintenance department, we changed the manager. We replaced the manager of the maintenance department. So now we have a new maintenance department. We also increased the number of technicians and made a split in people who are active in the. We have 2 shifts, in the morning shift, afternoon shift, and also people during the day shift. So there was also an item. There was a package, a maintenance management system. called McMain. You have many packages like Ultimo, Maximo. We use McMain, but it was not used at all. So we started to use that McMain package, and also actually explain to the people from production, team leaders, to fill in all the requests for that in that McMain package. So that helped enormously. And what we also started to do is go back, and many years ago they did that, to actually stops once every 2 months, an actual stop of a process line to do maintenance. Yeah.
Okay, nice. How did you connect to your machines? Via PLC or I/O module or sensors?
The entire factory is controlled by Siemens PLCs. There is, I believe, at the moment we are replacing the last old PLC. It's the brand Mitsubishi, but nothing bad about Mitsubishi. But we are standardized on Siemens PLC 7. So we have a whole network of PLCs for the entire factory, processing and packaging, and of course operator interfaces. We do not have a central control room, but HMI next to the lines. Okay. So SCADA next to the lines. Yeah.
Talking about display, do you also have a OA web dashboard display, and is that used in the factory?
Next to the line, now we have 3 lines. I showed you 2 lines, but a couple of months ago we extended that to 3 lines. And next to every line we have a PC with a touchscreen, so we can follow everything. Plus, the all OEE information is on the server. So in my room, in my office, I can connect to OEE Toolkit and see everything. And we also use that information every day during the morning prayer. So the morning meeting with production and technique and quality. We look at the OEE of yesterday and see what the reason was of a high or low OEE. So it's pretty much, incorporated in all the actions we do. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have many data points, sensors connected? For example, also waste yield, as you call it, waste connectors and production, or just production? What you count?
At the moment, we for the OEE we count only the finished product. We have 1 sensor. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you tackle the short stops if you don't know the reasons machine the stop happened on?
Yeah.
You understand this question?
Yeah, I understand it. And we made one colleague responsible for answering that question, and he investigated for, I believe, on 1 line for 3 days. Looking at the line, what the reason was of the short stops. And the short stops were caused by, for instance, the slow robot, also caused by a mismatch in speed between several conveyor belts. Also, how do you say that? The labeling machines who actually glue a label around the cans had frequently a very short breakdown where you miss 1 or 2 labels on the cans. You have to take that out. So the filling of the line was not good then. It's hard to explain, but he went to the line for 3 days and made a 6-item list of causes of short stops. For instance, one more by head, because I do it by head now. I have it somewhere on a paper. There was one conveyor where the cans go from 5 cans wide to 1, and frequently there was a blockage in that conveyor. So then you have for a certain moment no cans. So we also did something about that. So it's just monitoring for a couple of days, investigate what is the reason, and then discuss that and do something about it individually. Yeah.
Okay, nice. There's a question about if it is possible to reduce the amount of interactions from the employees. We have customers who have getting codes from the PLC mainly for failure stops. The software is able to translate those tags, as we call them, into reasons for standstills, but there is still interaction between the machine and the operator and the software needed, because the PLC cannot read everything, as you already explained. If another machine is stopping, then the PLC from the machine who is suffering from that doesn't know why there is a stop, so there's always interaction. And can you tell us again how the operators fill in the downtime reasons? I think you talked about a touchscreen.
Yeah, that's correct. And at the moment, I must admit, there is still some work to do there, because if there is a stop, then the operator has to indicate and press on a touchscreen what the reason is the line is stopped. So you have, let's say, 6, 7, 8 machines in that line, and if the label applicator of the cans stopped, then he presses label applicator. And I started with that, but it was never implemented. You cannot see on the spot where the operator stands, you cannot see the entire line, because the beginning of the line where the pallets are unloaded is around the corner.
Yeah.
And he cannot see that.
No.
So in the beginning we said, well, then we have to install cameras
Systems,
and a part of and install a screen next to the OEE toolkit touchscreen.
Yeah.
But that was a supplier came with a huge price, so we said, okay, we are not going to do that. Another idea was to install half round mirrors, but well, we never did that. So from time to time, if there are 2 machines around the corner, from time to time you miss it and you identify the wrong machine. But most of the machines are you can see from the spot where you are and are okay. But there is still some improvement to do there to make 100% sure that all causes are 100% okay. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
I'm getting some questions about total investment, but please address that to us. That is specific to other, for every customer, depending on what kind of contract they want with us. But what do you expect in ROI? And you don't have to mention amounts, but if you look at your investment and what you are thinking you can gain from it, in what multiplier do you see?
Yeah.
Or are you losing money?
Now, if you look at the OEE increase, then you reduce the production time enormously, and that means that you need less people. You can see that in the number of hours, production hours, and also the number of production hours for the people you have to hire, for instance. So the rough calculation is that the saving on a yearly basis up till now is approximately 300,000 euro. And yeah, the investment, well, you know that better than I, the investment was maybe 10, 15, something like that for 3 lines. Yeah. So yeah, that is uncomparable. So the advantage is so high that the investment is quote unquote peanuts. Yeah.
Too low. Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah.
Question about if FullFact is FullFact also arranging the data interfacing from the line to a central database? It is part of the solution. That is something that the local IT or network or technical department has to provide, and it is indeed a SQL database. What kind of touch screen or tablets do you use? Do you know the brand of the type? Is that?
No, I don't know. No,
Well, maybe we can.
I've seen it a year ago, but I really don't know. No.
Another question: do you only measure on total runtime, or also on specific orders, product types, to get more insight? Do you relate it to orders or product?
No. It's total per shift. We measure at the moment per shift, and in that shift we have 1, 2, 3, 4 orders. So we are not so far right now that we can identify the individual OEEs per order.
Okay.
Maybe in the future we do that to see what order causes a higher OEE than another order, but at the moment it's per shift.
Yeah. Okay. You do choose a product because you have several cans, for example, you have to fill. Is that something the operator still does? They do choose a product before they start the run?
Yeah, well, we have an ERP system, Navision, and the orders that the operator can see the queue of orders on his screen, and he chooses the order, and every order has his own SKU, his own can, the size, label, tray, film, etc. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That hopefully I covered all the questions I have seen in the chat. Sorry for not seeing that directly. There are several tabs I have to open, but there were 22 questions. Hopefully I get them all. If not, again, our email addresses are of course available for any questions you might have for Tom or for myself. And if you're looking for a very pragmatic, successful plant manager, Ton is available of 1st of January, I just understand. So there is his email address. But again, thank you very much, everybody, for your attention. Tom, Roos, and everybody involved, thank you for making this happen. And everybody have a very nice rest of the year. Hopefully all things get better and we have a nice Christmas and New Year's Eve. And we'll be starting fresh and well in 2021. Keep safe and well, keep us posted from things you want to know, everything you want to know about OEE. Thanks again, Tom, and everybody have a very great day.